applications will be considered by the county's Land Division Committee. Those in attendance wishing to make comment concerning any of these applications will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal the Land Division Committee's decision on any application must either make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to the Land Division Committee prior to a decision being made. All committee members, staff, and applicants are attending this electronic hearing remotely. This hearing is being held remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic and is being live streamed and recorded. Please be advised that public hearings from part of the public record and the words, names, or images of those participating will be recorded and posted online. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask the Secretary Treasurer to confirm the attendance of the committee members by roll call.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Committee members, I will be reading your names out loud. When you hear your name, please unmute yourself and respond as present. Member Duncan?
Present.
Member Herlick?
Present.
Member Aitchison?
Present.
Member Eggets?
Present.
And of course, Member McKenzie.
Present. Before I outline the hearing format, I wanted to make note that what will be showing on the screen for those viewing at home is our remote hearing platform, whereby whoever is speaking will be shown predominantly, with smaller images of the members and staff attending along the edge of the screen. As we consider each application, it'll take some time and there may be some extended pauses. So we ask for your patience as we navigate the new electronic hearing format. The agenda for this hearing has been posted online at perthcounty.ca. If you want to follow along, please feel free to access it now. I'll remind all committee members, staff, and applicants participating in the hearing to please mute your microphones when not in use to reduce the feedback. I'd also like to share the hearing format we'll be using to navigate through each application. Each application will be called by the chair, followed by a report summary provided by planning staff. Applicants will be given an opportunity to add anything further to their application. If you are an applicant and have nothing further to add, then you can simply say so. The committee will then be able to ask questions to the applicant or staff. After that, we will hear from members of the public who wish to comment on the application. Please note that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Please avoid repeating concerns already stated by others and focus on adding new information. Once all comments from the public have been heard, the applicant or staff will be given the opportunity to respond to comments. Finally, I will turn to the committee for a motion and deliberation, as well as a vote on the application. As this is a hearing being held remotely, there are some procedural changes regarding how the committee will vote. The Secretary Treasurer will call each of the members' names and each member will respond if they are in favor or opposed to the motion, and I will announce the result of the vote following that. So on that note, I guess we will proceed into the major part of our meeting here, and the first item is to confirm the agenda for today's meeting. So a motion would be in order for a confirmation of the agenda. Councillor Duncan and Councillor Aitchison, thank you. And then I guess I'll turn it over to Dave to do the vote.
Okay. Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Herlick, how do you vote? Councillor Herlick, how do you vote? Your audio cut out.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Eggets, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. All right. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the agenda as it was circulated? Okay, seeing none, then The next item then is the adoption of the previous minutes from June the 29th, 2020. Somebody like to move and second those minutes? Councillor Eggerts and Councillor Aitchison. Any discussion? Any questions with that? Okay, seeing none, I will ask David to do the vote.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggerts, how do you vote?
yes,
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
yes,
And Councillor Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. All right, moving on then. Our first application is an application for consent to sever, number B820 by Jan and Miriam Vanderwall. And Dave, I'll let you walk through that one.
Thank you, Chair. Members of Land Division Committee, the following application for consent by Mr. and Mrs. Vanderwall proposes to sever a lot containing a surplus farm dwelling located at 5005 Perth Line 55 in the Ellis Ward of the Township of Perth East. The lot containing the surplus farm dwelling would have an area of approximately 0.7 hectares or 1.73 acres, containing a single detached dwelling, as well as a shop building measuring approximately 40 feet by 100 feet, located approximately 55 feet from the dwelling. Other structures on the property include a bank barn, pig barn, grain bin, and an in-ground manure tank currently existing on the property, all of which have been proposed to be removed by the applicant should the severance be approved. The retained farm lot would have an area of approximately 18 hectares or 45 acres and would consist of farmland containing a municipal drain that bisects the property. The subject property is within the agriculture designation of the County of Perth official plan. The application has been reviewed with respect to official plan policy governing severance of surplus farm dwellings, and through that review, planning staff have found that the application is consistent with all policy criteria, save and except for criteria concerning minimum size for the severed lot. The planning office has identified an area of land containing the existing agriculturally related structures, which could be excluded from the severed lot area and instead rehabilitated for agricultural purposes once the noted structures have been removed. Should this area containing the existing structures be excluded, the severed lot could be reduced to be approximately 0.46 hectares or 1.14 acres in size, and therefore be more consistent with all official plan policy criteria. A recommended condition of consent has been included to direct that the size of the severed lot be reduced in area from what has been applied for. Of specific note to this application, the County of Perth currently holds an approximate 2-meter road widening along Perth Line 55, taken just west of the existing bank barn. This widening was stopped short due to the proximity of the barn to the existing property boundary with the right-of-way. Should the severance be approved, the bank barn will be demolished, and County Public Works has requested additional road widening in this area given the tentative plans to remove the bank barn. A condition of consent, condition number 8, has been included with respect to this request from County Public Works, such that the existing road widening will continue along the front of the property at Perth Line 55 from the limits of the previous widening to the corner of Perth Line 55 and Road 140. Further to this, Public Works has requested that should there be any changes to the existing access onto Perth Line 55, or that a request be made for new access onto Perth Line 55, that the county will require the owner to apply for an access permit. Recommended condition of consent has been included to account for this under condition number 12. To date, the County Planning Office has received correspondence regarding this application from Hydro One Network stating that they have no concern with the application, and also from the Council of the Township of Perth East recommending that the application for consent be approved however, without the noted staff recommended reduction to the proposed severed lot area. The planning office is recommending to the Land Division Committee that the application for consent, file number B0820, be approved, subject to the 13 conditions noted in our report, including condition that the severed lot be reduced in area as described by condition number 7. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of staff with regards to this application. Thank you.
Okay. So I believe we have Andrew Phillips here, and we also have the applicants here as well. So I will ask if the applicant or their agent has anything further to add for this application.
Hi, it's Andrew Phillips here. I just want to make sure you can hear me.
We can hear you, Andrew.
Okay, can you see us, or is this just audio?
You are audio.
Okay, that's probably for the best. So I'm in my office here, and I have Mr. and Mrs. Vanderwall, and I also have Mr. Mosterman here with me, just so that the committee knows. And we have reviewed the report of the planner, and we agree with the planner's recommendations, except for number 6 and 7. So number 6 is the condition that would require that the lands where the farm buildings are located be prepared for an agricultural use. And number 7 is the condition that would reduce the proposed size of the severed lot. So those are 2 points that we want to make submissions on to you today. And then also there's been some discussion in the report about the laneway, and in particular the laneway off of Perth line 55, and we'd like to address those as well. So I'm going to start off and just say a few things, and then Mr. Vanderwall wants to make a comment or two as well. So I guess my first submission to you would be that you know, the logic behind the recommendation of the planner is that the official plan calls for the preservation of prime agricultural land. And so my submission to you is that the area where the bank barn, the pig barn, the in-ground manure tank, and the grain bin are located, that is not and never again will be prime agricultural land. It's had buildings sitting on it for decades. And, you know, the task of removing those buildings and trying to rehab that into some kind of area that could be worked is just not realistic. And I'll let Mr. Vanderwall expand on that a little bit. But also the size of that little piece there, for him to get his machinery in there and try and work it, especially when, you know, the ground is going to be inadequate because they've had to remove buildings and replace it with fill and who knows what. You know, whatever is going to be recovered as workable farmland, you know, is just you know, not significant enough to warrant creating this irregular property line and just an impractical situation. So Mr. Vanderwall, I'll just let you say a few words, sort of farmer to farmer. And so Mr. Vanderwall and Mr. Mosterman both have been farming in Perth County for many, many years, and they share the opinion that it's just kind of an unworkable suggestion that this land could be turned into productive cropland again. So Mr. Vanderwall.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to keep this as simple, straightforward, practical as possible. So that's why we would like to ask for keeping the lot square. And I prepared some notes that may have been emailed to you or may not. I'll read them up. At the Perth East meeting, where we were not able to participate, the councillors took the words right out of my mouth. creating a nice square corner lot makes a lot more sense and makes for much better neighbor relationships in the future. The reduction area that's proposed has never been productive farmland to begin with. It's always been buildings, yard. It is too small a corner to work effectively with most modern farm equipment and will only create an unproductive corner turning and mucking around, especially considering that it will be dug through 10 feet deep to bury the old buildings. Now the report wants me to use this area as an access to the real farmland too yet, so all the traffic would have to go through it. Driving through that with full manure tankers, full silage wagons to and from our mainland, to our main farm isn't going to work and will definitely not create productive farmland. Our home farm is 1 kilometer west of there, so we would like to keep the distance on the road short and the distance in the field as well, and not have to drive by first and then double back over this disputed area. On a side note, we have 2 similar small impractical areas on our home farm. We retired as well for the same reason. When we raised concern about the driveway elimination, it was not because of access to the farmland. We're going to create a nicer, wider, safer access just west of the Sevens line to get farther away from the intersection and closer to our home farm and have a less steep incline to get on the road with our full wagons. The existing lane that's there is very good for the use of the house, but for a tractor with heavy wagons behind it, it's kind of steep. And then just east of the intersection, there's a bit of a hill too yet, so that doesn't help visibility. So we feel our new driveway, proposed driveway, is just a lot more logical and safe. The concern that we raised about the proposal for the driveway elimination was more that Mr. Mosterman would lose his official driveway to his house, his address, his fire number, and proper access. We don't think this is good planning. The other driveway that is in the picture to the side road, Road 140, is not an official road entrance. Mr. Mosterman made it many years ago when Road 140 was a no winter maintenance road. With the permission of Ellis Township, he made it as a shortcut for his farm equipment to haul manure and crops from his buildings to the south half of the farmland, and trying to avoid having to turn on to line 55 first and then off right away again, just for the same thing of practicality and safety. To get to that south half of the farm, you can only do it over side road 140 because the farm is split in half by a municipal drain and there's no bridge or culvert in that part in the farm. And somehow there are 2 pictures of this Road 140 access to the south field in this report. It's 400 meters from the buildings and the Severance area. We're not sure why these pictures are included. These are not the pictures of the line 55 road access in question. And then one more thing, we have no issue with the road widening, but would like to point out that this will reduce the severed lot size by a small amount, 0.03 acres. Thank you.
So it's Andrew Phillips again. So just, I do want to point out that I believe the Perth East Council unanimously recommended that the parcel as proposed, the larger parcel, be approved. So that's what was recommended to the Land Division Committee. And again, I would submit to you that we're not taking any prime agricultural land out of production. And so that part of the official plan, I don't think that the committee needs to concern itself about that in my submission. So unless anybody has any questions for us, I think I'll just mute and that would be our submissions. Walter, I think you're on mute.
We're good.
Okay, any questions from committee members? Okay. Rhonda has a question?
Not really a question. I do agree with Mr. Phillips and Mr. Vanderwall about squaring it off. It is a small area to try to cultivate, and also the fact that time you bury the barn and the pig barn and decommission everything, there's not a lot of topsoil there going to be left to even have a decent crop. So I do have one question though. How big is that shop or the shed that's going to be there?
40 by 96, I'm told.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Walter.
Okay, thanks, Rhonda. I would be amiss, Andrew, if I didn't make a comment about there's a number of fields around the country, including one that I have, that are growing corn and soybeans and occasionally white beans that once had a house and a barn there. And, you know, it's done multiple times, and I'm not trying to argue this case here. It may be well justified, but there's all kinds of farms out there that there used to be farms and there's no sign of them anymore. So it can be done. Anything else from anybody else? Oh, Daryl.
Yeah, great there, thanks. And of course, I am as well a member of the Northeast Council. And we looked at this and based the little key slot we're chasing here. It's in the corner of a farm. And then they wanted that laneway to be access to the field in the intersection. Oh man, I see accidents. But yeah, like I said, we are chasing a little slot in the wedge of a farm in the corner. And that is why we unanimously said, look, Wilson, let's square this up. This is the best option. And that's the decisions we made. But yeah, no, it can be done, as Walter said. It is a massive undertaking, and there is a lot of buildings here. I mean, if this was in the middle of a farm, hey, you might have to spend $100,000 to fix this up. But look, we're in a wedge and we're chasing crumbs. So I'll say no more. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Anybody else? Okay, if there is no further questions or discussion, I would ask at this time for a motion. Moved by Rhonda.
I would move it without conditions 6 and 7.
Okay. I think we, and seconded by Daryl. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, I'll turn it over to Dave to take the vote.
Okay, Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggerts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the results of that are that it's carried unanimously. Land Division Committee decisions are subject to an appeal by a local planning appeal tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. County staff have 15 days in which to issue notice of committee's decision with a 20-day appeal period following the date of the issuance of the notice. If no appeals are received during the 20-day appeal period, then the committee's decision is final. I would like to thank everyone for attending, be it virtually or however, and you may leave if you wish to continue to observe the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave you a number.
Oh, I just had it. Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry, I lost my agenda here. The next application for consent to sever, number B12, is by Jan Bittmans, and I will turn it over to Dave to talk about this application.
Thank you, Chair Mackenzie. Members of Land Division Committee, The following application for consent by Mr. Jan Buitens proposes to sever a lot containing a surplus farm dwelling located at 5969 Line 2 in the Blanchard Ward of the Township of Perth South. The lot containing the surplus farm dwelling would have an area of approximately 1.8 hectares or 4.5 acres and would contain a building cluster having the surplus farm dwelling along with a detached garage, 2 accessory structures, as well as a wooded area which contains a pond found west of the existing building cluster. The retained lot would consist of farmland and a woodlot containing no buildings or structures having an area of approximately 22 hectares or 55 acres. The subject property is within the agriculture and natural resource environment designations of the County of Perth official plan. The application has been reviewed with respect to official plan policy governing severance of surplus farm dwellings. And through review, county planning staff have found the application to be consistent with all policy criteria, save and except for criteria which concerns minimum size of the severed lot. The applicant has provided a justification letter in support of the proposal attached as Schedule D to our report, and has also provided supplementary justification materials that were distributed to the committee prior to this meeting following publication of the agenda. County planning staff have provided a point-by-point response to the justification letter in our report. We are in agreement with statements made by the applicant concerning the noted structures found within the building cluster as serving an accessory residential use, and therefore these have been proposed to be included as part of the minimum lot area for the severed lot. However, staff have differed in their interpretation versus the applicant concerning the proposed inclusion of the pond and wooded area, noting that these are not features that would normally qualify as being deemed accessory to a non-farm residential use. Were these features to be excluded, the severed lot could be reduced in area to be approximately 1.1 hectares or 2.7 acres in size, and thereby be consistent with all official plan policy criteria. A recommended condition of consent has been included to direct that the size of the severed lot be reduced in area from what has been applied for. To date, the County Planning Office has received responses to our circulation from the Osable Bayfield Conservation Authority, stating no concern with the application. We subsequently received response from Hydro One Networks, also stating no concern with the application. And lastly, response from the Council of the Township of Perth South, recommending that the application for consent be approved, however, without any reduction to the proposed severed lot area. The Planning Office is recommending to the County of Perth Land Division Committee that the application for consent to sever file B1220 by Mr. Jan Buitens be approved, subject to the 10 conditions noted in our report, including condition that the severed lot be reduced in area as described by condition number 10. I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of staff, and thank you for your time regarding presentation of our report.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So for committee members here, I'll just indicate who we have on this meeting with us, and we do have Jan Bittmans, who I'll ask shortly if he has anything further to add. We also have, I believe, neighbors Bill Bloom, Gerald Steenbeek, and Holly Adams, and I will give them an opportunity later on if they have anything further to add. So at this time, I will ask the applicant if they have anything further to add to this. They are muted. Yeah, Jan?
Yeah.
Jan?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. First of all, good morning. I was wondering if I could share a screen. If I click on this share button, do you? Oh, I guess I can't. I just tried, I can't. Okay, never mind. Anyway, just want to kind of give you a bit of quick background. My parents bought this farm in 1966, and the area that you see in the diagram that's surrounded by the yellow and red line in my application has never been cultivated. It started out as kind of a wasteland of rusty machinery and boulders when my parents bought the farm in 1966. And so they went about planting trees and turning it into a naturalized area. They dug a pond and basically wanted to create sort of a natural habitat for various animals and plants, also create a windbreak. And it's always been part of the homestead, let's say. And it seems logical to keep it that way. The tillable land surrounding that treed and area with the house is the only part that's been worked all these years, and it just seems logical to keep things the way they are. One of the concerns I have, as someone who grew up there from being a child, is that the trees and the pond area, if it's not part of the house lot, I fear that it could get chipped away over the years by whoever is farming the land. I actually don't worry too much about Mr. Steenbeek. He seems like he's values the treed area, but there's no guarantee that he will be the owner in future years. Properties change hands and so on. And just driving around the countryside, I'm sure you've seen this yourselves. So often you see every year a row of trees getting demolished and knocked down and turned into agricultural land. And it just seems to be a trend. And I know there's laws that protect the trees, but I had one of the farmers who made me an offer to purchase the agricultural land surrounding this parcel. He basically flat out said that it's worth it for him to pay the fine in order to increase his tillable land area. So my concern is to keep the lot size as what I've applied for, in order to protect the green area, the treed area. There's that pond, and it's a marshy area. It's a nice stopover for migrating birds. There's a lot of different amphibians and otter or muskrat, I'm not even sure what it is, living there. And it doesn't seem to be of any use to the farmer who wants to purchase this land. And it would just seems to make more sense to keep it with the house lot, because that way it will be preserved and protected. And then the farmer doesn't have to pay taxes on land that he can't technically use and can't really clear officially either. And I've done a lot of research with this whole severance thing and what the province's approach is and the county, the official plan. And it's funny, there's nothing in there that says that there's a maximum size allowed for these types of severances. There's a recommendation that it should be a minimum size to make sure that it can be used properly and serves the purposes of the residents. And I got the feeling that there's a bit of the pendulum seems to be swinging a little bit, in that there's a realization among planners that I've spoken to, both at the township and the county level, that maybe we should be looking at each severance more as a distinct case, looking at the features, the ground features around it, and try to decide what kind of lot size and shape would be of benefit to the most stakeholders. So I really would like to see this forested area stay with house, because it's more logical and more realistically a part of the house than it is a part of tillable acreage that a farmer wants. And I think I was going to speak about the buildings too, that there's a need to keep the buildings, but I think the planning committee has already agreed with me on that, and they've acknowledged that the buildings represent reasonable use and need for the house property. So I won't go into that. But like I said, my big concern is that these trees in the future might be taken down and the pond filled in, and we'll lose a valuable green space. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, I'll ask if there is comments from anybody else in attendance. And normally I would look to the side and somebody would put their hand up, but I have a list of names here, and I'm just going to ask as I go through here if you have anything further to add. And the first one on my list is Bill Bloom. If you have anything to add, say so, and if not, just say nothing at this time.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have, yeah, we don't have Steenbeek on here, do we? I don't see Gerald Steenbeek on here. I don't think he's here. And then the last one is Holly Adams. If you have any comments, please say so at this time, and if not, just say no, I have no further comment.
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so let me first introduce myself. I am a forester with experience in tree planting. I ran the largest tree planting program in Ontario, actually, for 5 years back in the 1990s. We planted millions of trees on private farmlands for windbreaks and wildlife corridors as extensions to woodlots and to reclaim wasteland. And for another 5 years, I taught forestry, including forest ecology, silviculture, which is the study of the best growth conditions of trees, entomology, and pathology. And now I'm a professional forager and I teach online. So right now I'm a live-in caregiver at this property in discussion. I give care to the family of Jan Beaton. So my interest in the property is not only to preserve as large a section as possible for the family, but also as an ecologist, forester, and an advocate for green spaces in Ontario. So I have 4 main points that I would just like to bring up. And the first one is, with a parcel of 4.5 acres, the house will be better protected from harsh winter weather conditions coming from the north and west because of that western woodlot and the rows of trees to the east that provide protection from summer storms. And I don't think that that is in discussion at this point. I think you're really just talking about the woodlot on the west. So in addition to protecting the house and buildings from harsh weather, these trees protect the land from chemicals that may be applied to the adjacent farmland. And they may not be right now, I don't know. But again, as Jan said earlier, we don't know what's going to be happening with that land later on. And so if these trees are cut down, then chemicals could be spilling onto the land. So a concern is and should be that future purchasers of the farmland and woodlot may choose to cut down the woodlot and expose the residents and the buildings to severe storms, blizzards, farm chemicals, and even windborne dust. My second point is that the west woodlot includes a wetland pond, and this serves as a flood drainage, water filtration, and habitat for many species of wildlife, including ducks and blue heron. We've seen bald eagles and hawks that in the immediate area. And of course, there are many amphibians that are known to live in the pond. Now, the current landowner is already practicing sound wildlife practices by implementing wildflower circles throughout the property. And these, along with the pond, are an excellent habitat for monarch butterflies. There are many milkweed plants found throughout the property. So if the woodlot is compromised, so will these microhabitats. My last point is my own interest in forage foods. So although the woodlot is not large, it has potential not only to carry edible species that can be expanded in towards the residents to grow many more perennial plants that can be consumed by the family and their friends. And this is a necessary precaution against rising prices for produce at the markets, and it provides an excellent gene pool of hereditary species for future diversity of edibles. So, and this is something that as climate change migrates our trees and plants further north and puts our food in a vulnerable state, we need to be concerned about this kind of thing. And so preserving the forests and the woodlots is essential to having that gene pool and having that source of food. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, committee members, any questions? Councillor Hurlick?
Yeah, just to refresh me here, David, how big is the wood lot? And again, what is the county official plan? What is considered a wood lot? The acreage size, help me out there.
Through the chair, Councillor Hurlick. So in the case of this application, we are proposing, we've identified that the treed area has an area of approximately 1.78 acres, so about 1 3/4 acres encompasses that area. In the County of Perth bylaw, there is definitions regarding woodlot and woodland. And if I'm getting my definitions right here, a woodlot has to have a particular minimum density of trees in terms of, and a tree is also defined in the bylaws having a minimum circumference as well. So in the case of a woodlot, it needs to be between I believe it's anything between 200 square meters to 1 hectare, I believe it is, and anything over a hectare is defined as a woodland. We don't have precise confirmation on whether this area is either a woodland or a woodlot as per the bylaw, which is why we've referred to it as a treed area in this case. And that's all I can say on the matter at this point. Without further confirmation, we wouldn't be able to provide a precise definition as per the tree cutting bylaw.
Another question, Daryl?
Yeah, okay, it's just my concern, of course, with this all is let's be honest here, we've had some in the past in a bush or butt up against the bush, and I mean, we don't include extra bush in the event. I mean, if it is a wood lot or a woodland, you know, we need to get that cleared up so that we know. Essentially, this is the windbreak. I get it, but it's more of a bush, and there is that gray area, and we want to get that clear. And yeah, I mean, we simply can't be including bushes with severances. I mean, we can clean this up. We'll let them. In my mind, we keep that dug well. It's an important part to the house. I get it. We've done it lots of times. But we also, there's 2 proposals here. And if they can't cut this bush down by law, I mean, it's not going to happen. There is huge fines. And the idea that you can just pay the fine off, no, they'll make you replant. Trust me, I've seen it done more than once. And you have to replant the bush. So I'm really poor on this. And that's what I was hoping to clear up, was the specific size and terminology. So I'll just let it go around the table and I'll sit here and think a little bit more. Thank you.
No greater than 1 hectare.
Yeah. Now we just looking up here, Daryl, and that's in our county tree bylaw, right? Basically, woodlots, and this maybe it's almost the same as what Dave was saying. It's half an acre. To 1 hectare is considered a woodlot, and there's certainly all of that there. And it's quite a thick wood lot. It's really thick. It's a bush. Other questions? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Dave.
sorry.
No, no.
Just further to your question, Councillor Hurlick, to absolutely confirm the nature of the wooded area as per the definitions in the tree bylaw, the only direct and very legitimate way to do so would be to have a forestry professional review that area and provide a report which would define it or not define it as such as per the definitions in the bylaw. So that'd be the most absolute way to confirm whether or not it qualifies under the definitions in the bylaw would be to have a forestry professional come in and do a site survey to determine that. So at the present time, we don't have that information, so which is why we referred to it in our report as a wooded area.
Thanks, Dave. Rhonda, you had a question?
Not a question, but more of a comment. Unfortunately, I find this lot too big. Our mandate on this council this committee is to make these lots as small as possible, which to me is basically the house, the septic, and the well. Now, in this case, I know there's some sheds there too, and it's still too big at 2.5 acres, but I can support maybe that better than I can support 4.5. I understand the Beaton's concern about the pond and the trees, but they're almost painting the farmer like they're the bad guy. And there's lots of farmers out there who would keep this bush, who would keep the pond. How do we know the next owner of the Beaton's is not going to get rid of the bush or the pond? So I think we have to look at what we have here today. We've already turned down a similar proposal in the past where they wanted to keep a pond in the trees with the house, and our committee said no. So I kind of find it hard now to turn around and say that's okay. So I do think that it needs to be shrunk. So I can't support that we would keep it the size it is.
Thank you, Rhonda. Matt, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a comment too. Like I fully understand the applicant's wishes to protect that property, but on the other aspect, we've turned these down more than once in the past. They had these wooded areas with the houses, and excuse me, I think it's only fair to the other applicants that we've turned down that we reduce this one in size as well. And I'd be willing to support the recommendation of the planning department at 2.72 and leave the outbuildings with it.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Can we throw up your suggested?
Sure.
Can we make it? Oh,
Hey, Walter,
sorry, Jim, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. Go ahead.
I'm just hiding. So this was a lengthy discussion when we were at Perth South with this. And I can't say, like, I understand why the Beatons would like to keep this with the property. But I did say the night of the Perth South meeting that there was a very good chance that probably wouldn't pass when it went to land division based on what had happened in the past. And I think Rhonda mentioned, or Matt Duncan mentioned, we have turned these down before. It's unfortunate, but I honestly have to say I would agree with the planner's recommendation.
Thank you, Jim. Dave?
Through the chair, I have nothing further to add at this point, unless there's questions, direct questions from the committee or members of the public for planning staff.
Okay, any further questions from any of the committee members? Okay, I guess we're to that point where I'm looking for a type of motion, and this is one of the ones, I guess, where we've got three options. You can accept it, you can turn it down, or you can defer for further information. So there might be another option out there too, I'm not sure. But anyways, I open it up for someone to make a motion here. Matt?
I'll make a motion to accept the report as presented.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's the way it was submitted. So that's been moved. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
You mean submitted, or do you mean, because submitted was the full parcel?
Yeah.
I apologize. I mean the planning staff's recommendation.
Oh, okay, all right. That's a little different, Matt. I understood you were taking it as it was submitted by the applicant. So
No,
what's your
planning staff recommendation.
the plan?
I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Yeah, well, we weren't, Jim, obviously here.
I apologize.
Oh, so that's fine, Matt. Okay. So your recommendation is that we go with the planning staff recommendation on that. Do we have a seconder for that? Jim, okay, thank you. And it's in your package there, but with that one, the line goes down and most of the treat area on the left-hand side is taken out of the severance. Any questions on what we're doing here? Okay, it's been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Dave, you got to do
Okay,
this. Sorry.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggetts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. Okay, so that's been carried. The revised recommendation from staff. The Land Division Committee's decisions are subject to an appeal by the local planning appeal tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The county staff have 15 days in which to issue notice of the committee's decision with a 20-day appeal period following from the date of issuance of the notice. If no appeals are received during the 20-day appeal period, then the committee's decision is final. I want to thank everyone for attending, whether it's virtually or however, and you may leave if you wish, or you can continue to observe the rest of the meeting. So thank you for taking part in this part of the meeting. Thank you. The next application is an application for consent to sever B17 by Bymas, and I will turn it over to Dave.
Okay, thank you, Chair McKenzie. Before we begin, members of the committee, I was called earlier in the meeting by Mr. David Dickey, who's a lawyer. He's the agent for the applicants in this case. And I think we might just take a brief pause to make sure that Mr. Dickey can patch in with us. I know that he's observing at this moment in time.
Okay, we'll just take a brief.
Maybe take a 2-minute
Sure,
recess just to get Mr. Dickey on board.
Give Jim time to go in for a coffee and come back out again. Was that a St. Mary's number or where are we here? 29.
His office is in Listowel.
Listowel,
as I-
okay.
as I
All right,
understand.
okay, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, David. It's David Gundrum here with the Land Division Committee. We've just connected you in as we're about to start the hearing for Mr. Vyman.
Perfect. I'm here. I have been watching.
Okay. So we'll just wait until a couple of our members return and we'll get started here momentarily.
Sure. I'm going to walk away from my computer. I can hear the lag between the two.
Okay.
I don't think I'll have much to add regardless, but, you know, in case there were any questions, I'm happy to be here and add context if need be.
Thank you, David. We'll be starting momentarily.
Okay.
Continue on here then with this hearing this report, and Dave, you were just in the process of explaining it.
Okay. Thank you, members. Following application for consent by Mr. Johannes Byman proposes to sever a lot containing a surplus farm dwelling located at 6379 line 84 in the Alma ward of the municipality of North Perth, as well as to establish a right-of-way associated with the proposed severance. The lot containing the surplus farm dwelling would have an area of approximately 1.26 hectares or 3.11 acres and would have a building cluster which contains the surplus farm dwelling as well as wooded areas and a water course being the Maitland River. The retained farm lot in this case would be approximately 46 hectares or 114 acres in size and would consist of farmland containing a woodlot, a water course in the Maitland River, as well as a metal-clad shed. A right-of-way having a width of approximately 12 meters and a length of approximately 114 meters is proposed to be created across the retained farm lot, which has frontage onto line 84 in favor of the severed lot for the purpose of public road access to the severed lot using an existing driveway. Subject property is within the agriculture and natural resource environment designations of the County of Perth official plan. The application has been reviewed with respect to official plan policy governing severance of surplus farm dwellings. And through review, county planning staff have found the application to be consistent with all policy criteria, save and except for criteria concerning minimum size of the severed lot. The planning office has identified an area of land containing a wooded area as well as shoreline areas of the Maitland River that were proposed by the applicant to form part of the severed lot. However, these are not features that would normally qualify as being deemed necessary for the minimum lot size needed to accommodate the residential use in the form of a surplus farm dwelling. The existing wooded area and water course constitute features that would typically be associated with natural areas that form part of a farm property. Were these features to be excluded, the severed lot could be reduced to be approximately 2/3 of a hectare or 1.6 acres in size and thereby be consistent with all official plan policy criteria. A recommended condition of consent has been included to direct that the size of the severed lot be reduced in area from what has been applied for. Regarding the proposed right-of-way, the county official plan directs that consents will not be granted where access to a proposed lot will create conditions hazardous to the movement of traffic along public road. As the right-of-way proposed by the application will ensure that any future movement of farm equipment onto and off of the retained farm lot will be via line 84 to the north, rather than through the local public road network for the village of Trowbridge, found to the south. The proposed right-of-way has found to be consistent with County of Perth official plan policy. To date, the County Planning Office has received responses from the Maitland River Conservation Authority stating that they have no objection to the proposed severance. Hydro One Networks and Bell Canada have also both responded independently, each stating no concern with the application. Lastly, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth has responded recommending that the application be approved, including condition that the severed lot be reduced in size as per staff's recommendation. The Planning Office is recommending that the County Land Division Committee approve the application for consent to sever file B17-20 by Mr. Johannes Byman, subject to the 10 conditions noted in our report, including condition that the severed lot be reduced in area as described by condition number 10. I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. So at this time I'll ask, I guess the applicant isn't on, but we do have the agent, Mr. Dickey.
Yeah, I'm simply here to make sure that all goes smoothly. Applicant has no issues with the revision to the original application. So if there's no concerns, that's great. And if you have any questions that I can answer, I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There are no other people in attendance, I don't see. So questions from committee members. Darrell?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sarah. Hey, David, help me out here. Riverbeds and rivers. I'm quite positive I know the answer. But the river and the riverbed, that is the owner's property, correct? And of course, water, and if it's a navigable course, yes, people can go down it. But if your property's split on that, you do own the sides and the bed, correct?
Through the chair for Councillor Hurlick, that's correct, save and except for water courses, as I understand, that are federally regulated as navigation waterways. That isn't the case in this case. So your statements, as far as I understand it, would be correct in this case.
Other questions or comments? Jim?
Well, looking at this, the applicant does have no problem, I don't think, with the reduced size. And based on what you just did with your previous application, I would make a motion. We recommend the planning department's recommendation for the severance.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And Matt, you're going to second that, or do you have a comment? He's seconding that.
No, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any further discussion? We're good there? Okay, I'll turn it over to Dave to take the vote then.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Agats, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the results are of that particular application there. It's been carried unanimously. So Land Division Committee's decision are subject to an appeal to the local appeal planning appeal tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. County staff have 15 days in which to issue a notice of committee's decision with a 20-day appeal period following from the date of issuance of the notice. If no appeals are received during the 20-day appeal period, then the committee's decision is final. Thank you for attending, and you may leave if you wish, or you can continue to observe the rest of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.
All right, moving on then. We have any correspondence, David? No?
Oh, that'd be section 6 first.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Yes, I missed one. Yeah, report. Sorry.
Yeah. So members of committee, we have our report under section 6 regarding new pending, final approved, withdrawn, and you'll notice a slight difference to this report, which we'll be carrying forward in future agendas. Our report under section 6 also includes applications for consent that have been approved through delegated approval authority. So just to summarize, Since our last meeting on June 29th, we have 13 new applications that have been received. You'll notice that they're under 8 bullet points, so there are a couple of groups of applications that relate to the same subject property, but 13 in total. 5 applications found under pending. We have final approved and issued certificate of official for 6 applications since our last meeting in June. We also have 5 applications for the same subject site that have all been collectively withdrawn with notes concerning the matter of the withdrawal in the report. And since our last meeting and under the new County of Perth delegated approval bylaw, we have 5 applications for consent that were approved through delegated authority by our manager of planning that would otherwise under other circumstances have been presented to you today. The notices of decision for those 5 applications were issued this past Friday, July 24th, 2020. And if members of committee have any questions with regard to our report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions or comments for Dave? Okay, seeing none then. Next item then is correspondence. And, we need a vote. I'm sorry. Yes, we do. We need a vote. We need a mover and seconder to accept that report. Moved by Jim, seconded by Rhonda. And I'll let you take the vote, David.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote? Councillor Hurlick, will repeat again.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Agats, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. Okay, so that has been carried. I seem to want to do correspondence so bad here. Is there any?
There is no correspondence.
No correspondence. Okay, item number 8 is appeals.
Yes.
And so there is one there, and Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So just for the committee's information, and this was mentioned briefly at our last meeting, but we've put it in writing. An appeal of consent B6719, Sylvestrin was received by the County Planning Office at the end of June, and our package has been sent off and filed with the local Planning Appeals Tribunal. And just to summarize, application B6719 was for a residential lot addition within the town of Mitchell. And this application was originally granted conditional approval on March 2nd, 2020. So our package has been sent off and we're awaiting further word from LPAD on this one. And we will update the committee moving forward as we receive updates.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Do we need a motion, Sean, to accept that?
It wasn't really a report.
There was no reports.
Okay, all right, we just carry on. Okay. Item 9 then, under other business. Dave?
Okay. So members of committee, we have 2 reports under other business, which are concerning reconsideration of applications that were previously deferred. The first application that is up for reconsideration is an older one that was dealt with or brought before the committee several times in 2019. So the application is application B3319 by Terpstra Drying Incorporated. This application was for surplus farm severance in the Elma Ward, municipality of North Perth, for property located at 5400 Perth Line 72. We have provided a summary of the background to the application in our report. I won't go over all the details word for word here, but several deferrals were issued for this application for consent. And much of the issue regarding the deferral revolved around the size of the severed lot and inclusion of an area containing a shed. So regarding the application, previous report to the Land Division Committee noted concern for the inclusion of an area found east of the surplus farm dwelling, which contained a shed having a floor area of approximately 3,500 square feet. The shed is located approximately 72 feet from the nearest outside wall of the surplus farm dwelling and shares a common public road access with the dwelling. Previous concerns regarding this area related primarily to the size and location of the shed, stating that due primarily to the size of the shed that it could not be deemed as accessory to the residential use and therefore included as part of the severed lot. Upon further review of the application and in light of changing interpretations of what has been deemed as accessory to residential use with respect to surplus farm dwellings, it should be noted that nowhere in the current surplus farm dwelling severance policy is there a reliance on the size of sheds as a qualifier to determine their accessory nature to the residence. For cases where shed structures exist in proximity to surplus farm dwellings, it is recognized that these structures can serve or already serve a supporting role to the existing residential use. In the case of this site at 5400 Perth line 72, it is noted that there is also a stand of mature trees which form a natural barrier and windbreak with the adjacent cultivated field areas that would form the northern boundary of the severed lot. This feature begins at the eastern edge of the shed structure and proceeds along what would be the entire northern boundary of the severed lot, proceeding south and terminating at the frontage with Perth line 72. This existing feature reinforces demarcations among the building cluster and cultivated areas and also serves as a supporting function for the residential use in this particular case. For the reasons listed, the planning office has determined through a more nuanced interpretation of existing policy that the proposed severance would be consistent with the PPS and county official plan should the application be approved, subject to the noted reduction as recommended of only the cultivated area and not the cultivated area and that area containing the shed. We are recommending to Land Division Committee that they approve the application for consent, application B 3319 by Terpstra Drying Incorporated, subject to the 9 conditions that are detailed in our report dated July 27th, 2020. And I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this reconsideration on behalf of staff. Thank you.
Clarification, Dave, here. Like there's, I think, 3 applications in here, various drawings. There's one that had trimmed the lot back on the west side. I think west?
West, yeah. Yes.
So is that the one we're actually considering now?
No, we're considering reduction such that the, through the chair for committee, we're considering reduction of only the cultivated area that was otherwise proposed to be included that would be east of the existing driveway.
Okay, so this goes back to the original first application.
This does,
Okay,
yes.
all right, just for clarification.
Yes.
Okay, questions from committee members? Matt?
If there's no questions, I'd like to move the application.
We do have Arian on the line.
Okay. Okay, we do have the
Agent.
agent for the applicant, and I'll give him an opportunity to speak at this time, and then I'll go back to committee for comments. So, Arian?
Good morning, everyone. I have no further comments, and yeah, it would be great to see this move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, back to committee members. Daryl.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks. It's no secret at this point. We've did some tweaking. We've compiled our brains and thinking, and yeah, at the end of the day, there's a massive tree line there, sheds there. It's a little key slot that we're going to end up with and making more lanes. At this point now, we have included other sheds similar in size. And I gotta agree with where that is based on where this property is located. Again, if this was in the middle of a farm, you know, there'd be a little trimming to do. but I kind of like the way it's drummed up and all second formats.
Okay, anybody else? Jim? You're highlighted, so
There we go. No, I agree with Matt on this. We're taking that cultivated section out down kind of, we're actually going to go back to basically follow the driveway, right? We're taking that little kind of shape thing out down in the, I'm going to say the southeast corner.
Through the chair, Councillor Aitchison, that's correct. That would be, the area you have identified would be the area reduced and removed from the severed lot.
Okay, I couldn't tell if Daryl seconded that or not, but if he didn't, I will.
Okay.
Did we have a motion?
Well, Matt made a motion that he would move that recommendation. And I guess Jim said he would second that. So I would turn it over to you, I guess, at this time.
Okay.
Just a minute. Can we see the map that? Can we see the map then that actually? So the map up in mine shows the. Can we see the map that we're actually voting on here? So we know exactly what's happening.
Through the chair, Councillor Eggerts, if you just give me a moment to navigate the agenda, I'll try to pull that that photo.
I think it's out. Page 91, is that the one we're looking at?
Yes.
Yep.
So through the chair, Councillor Eggerts, what you're seeing here, the area in the bottom, I call it the bottom right or southeast corner of the drawing, which is has a hatched area that's been drawn over the drawing. It says removed from severed. That would be the area. That would generally be the area that would be removed. The one that's shown to the west, which would also says removed from severed, that would remain as part of the severed lot. So it's only the portion to the east of the driveway, generally shown that's marked up on that original severed sketch.
Okay, and so how big is this area that we're talking today now? What's it down to now?
So just to confirm, the reduction the severed lot would be reduced by approximately 0.41 acres or 0.17 hectares. So just over a third of an acre would be taken out.
I know, but what is the total we're talking? That's what I want to know, not what's being taken off. Are we still talking 2 acres, 1.6 acres? How many acres are we severing?
The severed lot would be 1.99 approximately acres.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we duly moved and seconded it. So Dave, I'll let you take the vote.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote? Councillor Hurlick, can you please repeat? It was cut off.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Eggerts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
I guess yes. So the results of that vote is that it's carried. Land Division Committee's decision are subject to an appeal by the local appeal tribunal. In accordance with provisions of the Planning Act, county staff have 15 days in which to issue notice of committee's decision with a 20-day appeal period following the date of the issuance of the notice. If no appeals are received during the 20-day appeal period, then the committee's decision is final. And I would like to thank those for attending, and you may stay if you wish and continue to watch the meeting. But at this time, we want to thank you for participating. So thank you. The other application then is one that was deferred from last week, and that is the Jones severance in Shakespeare. And I'll let Dave update us on that one.
Thank you, Chair McKenzie. Just to update staff, as you may recall, this application was dealt with at the June 29th meeting. This application was for consent to sever for residential purposes within the village of Shakespeare. Tracking back to our previous meeting, there was concern regarding an easement request that had come forward by Bell Canada, and that at the time committee deferred decision on the matter to allow further investigation of the location of the telecommunication infrastructure, and so that Bell Canada and the applicant had further time to discuss matters with each other and come to some agreement on the situation. So through further investigations on both the part of the applicant and Bell Canada, the exact nature and location of the existing telecommunication infrastructure has been verified. Bell Canada has maintained their request for a 3-meter wide easement crossing the subject property in an east-west direction regarding this existing infrastructure. And as per correspondence, which has been included as part of our updated report for this agenda, the applicant has indicated that themselves and the owners are agreeable to the proposed easement. County staff are recommending to Land Division Committee that the application be approved, subject to the conditions in our report, including condition number 11, which regards establishment of the easement with respect to existing telecommunication infrastructure for future access and maintenance by Bell Canada. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions committee has on this application, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dave. We have Brian Wilhelm joining us. I don't know if he has anything further he wishes to comment at this time. I'll certainly entertain it if he wishes.
I have nothing to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. Questions from committee members? Hopefully we've got all our questions answered that we had at the last meeting. Jim?
I'd just say if the owners are agreeable with that, then I would move we'd approve this with the right of way.
Okay, thank you,
or the
Jim.
easement, or whatever word you want to use.
Yep, thank you, Jim. We have a seconder for that, Rhonda. Okay, any further discussion on this matter? Okay, Dave, I'll let you take the vote.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggetts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So that application has been approved as a result of the vote. Land Division Committee's decision are subject to an appeal by the local appeal or planning appeal tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. County staff have 15 days in which to issue notice of committee's decision with a 20-day appeal period following the date of issuance of the notice. If no appeals are received during the 20-day period, the committee's decision is final. I want to thank you for attending, and pretty well the last one, I was going to say you can leave or you can stay and see the rest of the meeting, but we're pretty well at the end, so I want to thank you for your participation. No closed session, I don't believe. Next meeting is August 31st at 9:30. Probably still a Zoom meeting, I assume. Okay. Anything further from any of the committee members? No? Okay. Then a motion to adjourn would be in order. Moved by Daryl and seconded by Matt. And I guess you have to take a vote on this one too.
Councillor Hurlick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggetts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes.